Arthur Rubinstein at 90 is one of the wonders of the modern world. Put very simply, he is a giant in music, possessed of an extraordinary gift for interpretation, an uncanny memory, and a unique, sweet singing touch at the keyboard. The emotion his playing transmits has moved millions of people down the years, in thousands of live performances, on television, and through the extraordinary popularity of his recordings. But Rubinstein is more than a musician. For 90 years, he has demonstrated a prodigious appetite for living, for food, for wine, for art, for painting, for sculpture, for philosophy, for books, for travel, for friends, for family.
Do you know that since ever, I'm all the time thinking, what was the reason for any success I have had in my life? Because I certainly do not play the piano as well as most pianists who play. I never worked so much as they do, you know. They play the piano to perfection. I know young people now who play the piano as one can't play it better. But then, when I hear them play that way, I have my little question for them. I ask them, when will you start to make music? Make music, you see, that is something which preoccupies me. That means make music is something metaphysical. A painting is a painting, visible. A sculpture is visible. A poem is visible on the paper. Well, music is visible but not audible. I mean, it exists only because there are also necessary to it the other part of musicians, the interpreters. I belong to this group, you see. I call interpreters good talents, the composers geniuses, if they are the great composers I speak of, you see. But what happened to me is something quite strange, which I observed very often, you see. I observed the fact that I come on the stage for a concert as representation, as picture of what happens on the stage. It is rather ridiculous because a fat little man like me appearing there in an evening dress looks like an undertaker, you know, funeral things, and the piano has a little look of a coffin, if you like to know, you know. Well, and the public fills the hall, let's say. They come after a good dinner. The women look at each other, you know, at other women's dresses. Men think mostly about business or some games or some sports or God knows what. And there I have this crowd, not entirely quite musical, not really knowers of music, but who like music, who love music. And that is a very difficult proposition. I have to hold them, you know, in attention by my emotion, nothing else. I can't look at them, I can't make faces, I can't tell them, now comes the great moment, now you listen, now is the great thing for you, nothing of the kind, huh? I have to play. Look there straight in front of me, but there is a certain antenna, there is a certain secret thing, there is a thing which goes out, emanates from me, from my emotion, not from me, from my emotion, from the feeling. You like to call it soul if you like to. I don't know what soul means, but it's the word which one uses very much, without knowing what it represents really. But this something, which let me call it for the moment soul if you like, projects something which I do feel that it is doing it. It suddenly puts the audience into my hands. There's a moment where I feel them all here. I can do anything. I can hold them with one little note in the air, and they will not breathe because they wait what happens next, you know, what will come in the music. That is a great, great moment. Not always does it happen, but when it does happen, it is a great moment of our lives.
You've said, or you've written, that when you are playing, it is like making love. And I wonder how literally you meant that. How do you mean it?
Well, I must say I always had a sensual, not sensuous, but sensual feeling of my fingers when I have to strike something which goes out of my inner self, you know. When I have to sing out the Nocturne of Chopin, I sing it inside, but I sing it like a love song, you see, and then under my fingers, I feel, what you said, I feel a rather sensual pleasure, you know, in touching it. I become excited when I touch it E flat, which will give that sound which I need to hear. That too.
When people say, as they do, that you are the greatest pianist of this century, do you believe them?
I do not believe them, but I get very angry when I hear that, because it is absolute, sheer, horrible nonsense. There isn't such a thing as the greatest pianist of any time, of anyone, nor anything. Nothing in art can be the best. It is only different. You see, I will tell you my theory about it. I don't think that an artist, whatever it is, a painter, sculptor, musician, performer, composer, whatever, somebody who has the title of being an artist, of having to do with arts, must have an unconfoundable personality. There must be the one and nobody else. He is Joe Smith and there is nobody else like that. For me, if one says, oh, he plays, you know, it's a second Liszt or second Paderewski or second, a second is already wrong, you know. If he's a second, he's no good at all. He's an imitator. An artist in any way must be alone, a world by himself. If I were questioning somebody and asked you, for instance, well, who do you really think the greatest of all times? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian, Velasquez, Rembrandt. What would you do?
It's impossible.
Each one of them is a world by itself, a world. If I go to see the whole exhibition of Rembrandt that I saw in Amsterdam once, 350 pictures, I mean not all, but I mean most of it, on an anniversary of his, I assure you, I thought there was nothing else in the world possible. But then a few weeks later, there was a little exposition here of most works of Vermeer. I had exactly the same feeling. Then I saw an exhibition of Titian, exactly the same feeling. They are alone, they are a world by itself. You know, that is something. A Beethoven is alone. A Mozart is alone. There are not many Mozart, some like him with Mozart and others and Beethoven. No. Look here, if I'm a pianist, well, I'm a pianist of my kind, which pleased so many people who liked the kind of my playing, who were my followers, who had enjoyed it, might even had a great emotion out of it and so on. But then there are others who get emotions and get very moved by other pianists, this one and that one and this one and this one. Who can say that this one is the greatest? It's a nonsense. I hate that.
Would you explain to me, in very simple terms, as someone who is not a musician, how you produce the tone that you do?
I can tell you that. I learned from a Czechoslovakian singer who was very famous in times, who sang with Caruso in old times, in my young years. It was Amy Destin. Amy Destin struck me when she sang with a marvelous, marvelous voice, which just acted on me sensually, you know, which made me cry by the sheer voice, the sheer sound of voice, you know. Sometimes the sound itself, not the melody or the composition, but the quality of the voice does something to me, you know. And
yes.
She had that. And she had, of course, as all singers, to take her breath at the right moment. We have to take, in a way, our breath at the right moment when we speak. To make a phrase clear, we have to make that little stop and cut the phrase into the pieces which make sense, isn't it so?
Yes.
But that same came to me as idea when she sang. I started suddenly to feeling that I have to take breath at the piano. I sometimes press my finger on it only, which means nothing, because there is a hammer, percussion hammer. Nothing can change much in the piano. It's a percussion instrument, isn't it? But it has a vibration. When you let the string stay without letting the hammer down on it, it vibrates in the air. You have the pedal to keep it a long while if you want to, if you can. And there is a certain pressure which makes it being struck in a certain way, not hard, but just the way you want, and it sinks in you. Well, I found that for myself. And I couldn't teach that for any money in the world. I tell the young people, sing. Sing inside. You have no voice, that doesn't matter. You have the best voice if you feel singing in you.